So the top surface of a desk has a length of 5.6 feet. The length is 4 times its width. What is the width of the desk? Now, I asked you already, think about what's longer, the length or the width on this desk. Jose, what do you think?
Length.
You guys agree with Jose?
Yes.
Okay, since I know the length is longer, I'm going to make that a pretty long tape diagram. That's going to give me room to work. And what is the length?
5.6 feet.
5.6 feet or 5 6/10 of a foot, 6/10 feet. Okay, so that's what I know. I also know that the length is 4 times the width. So 4 times the width is the length. Now here's what I want to show you. Because, you know, I have technology at my fingertips. So I'm going to draw what I think is the width. I'm just going to eyeball it here. Okay, and then if this is true, if the way I think I need to solve it is true, I can fit 4 of these in here, correct?
Yep.
And then that would be right, because its length is 4 times the width. So, now, this is called Command D, and you can duplicate it. And you can use any keyboard to do Command D.
Even computers? D.
Command D for duplicate. And so, and I just guessed, right? But it looks to me like I got my width at about the right size, okay? So what do I need to do to this tape diagram so I can figure out, you can figure out how big to make your width, Miley? I could put lines between them. So I'm going to divide it into, I'm just going to go ahead and erase this too. I'm going to divide it into how many sections?
4.
4 equal sections. Now watch me. Dotted line. I'm going to line that up about right there, and that should be my width. Okay. Now we're going to use this strategy more than once, so I wanted to talk to you specifically about how to draw it. Okay. That dotted line has just helped me line this up. And then here's what I want to do. So did you draw your width?
Yep.
Okay. When I was a kid, here's what I did almost every time. If something was 4 times as big as something else, I thought I needed to add 4 to the one I had. So if I would have done this, I would have ended up with 5 of these, which would have been incorrect. Okay? So I want you to listen carefully. If something is 4 times something, that means to multiply. Okay? And what's the opposite of multiply?
Divide.
Divide. So if something is 4 times as large, you can divide by 4 and figure out the answer. Okay, what's the best way to divide by 4?
Long division.
Long division. So I want to do it without the decimal, don't you?
Yes.
Okay, so let's make this 56 what?
Tenths.
Tenths. Make it 56 tenths. Just take that decimal out. We'll use unit form. And divided by, we already established that. What is it? Divided by what? 4. And do some long division for me. This is pretty simple compared to the test we just took, isn't it?
Yes.
So Miley, what did you get for your answer? 14 what? Tenths. So 14 tenths can be written as what?
1.4.
1.4 or 1 4/10 of a foot. Okay? Now what would my sentence be for this? To answer this.
The width, the top surface.
Okay, now take a look at this. Here's the question. What is the width of the desk? So who said the width? Thomas, you're right. You could start with the top surface of the desk has a width of, or you could just say the width of the desk is. Whenever you write your sentence, you have to have the label on there, or we don't know what we're talking about. We're not going to waste time in class right now to do that. Those of you who already did it, thank you. But let's go on to the lesson, okay? So, I'm going to go ahead and push pause for a minute because I want you to take a look at my favorite math teacher and how he introduces this lesson. Okay? Okay, so let's take a look at the first problem. 4 times 30, and I want everyone to write 4 times 30 down on their whiteboard. Yes, you can erase. I'll give you time. Okay, and your 3rd grade teacher probably said something like, multiply 4 times 3,
12.
and then add a 0 to the end, right? And your 5th grade teacher even said anything times a multiple of 10, add a 0 to the end, right? Now, what if we take this a step further? What if we talk about why this actually works? So, underneath this, or you can erase and start over, let's do 4 times 30, and you don't need an equal sign there. And we're going to change it to unit form. The first step in understanding is to write it in unit form. So this is 4 what?
4 tens.
You're close. 4 ones times 3 what? Tens. So 4 ones times 3 tens. That's what I'm multiplying. Okay? Now the second step is to use a couple of mathematical properties to help us. You remember the commutative property, don't you? Well, it's the old switcheroo. When you add or multiply, the order of your numbers doesn't matter. You can switch them around and still get the same answer. Like 4 times 3 equals 12, and 3 times 4 equals 12. Same thing with addition. 3 plus 5 equals 8. 5 plus 3 equals
8.
Okay? That's a commutative property. We're going to use it today. We're going to switch numbers around. We can do that if we want. Nobody says we can't because we know the commutative property. The other property we're going to use is associative property. Now, how I remember the associative property is I associate with my friends. And I like to spend time with my friends. So we might hug now and then. And I could kind of think of those parentheses as hugging, couldn't I?
Yeah.
Okay, so the associative property says the order in which you group your numbers is not going to change your answer. So let's take a look at this. I could think of this as 4 times 1 for 4 ones, and I could think of this as 3 times 10 for 3 tens. Go ahead and write that down. Okay, now what I want to do is do the switcheroo with a couple of these. What numbers do you think it would make sense to switch around?
4 times 4. 4 times 1.
Well, I mean,
4 and 1. 3 and 1.
Okay, Thomas, why do you say 3 and 1?
Because if you multiply 4 times 2, you get 12. If you multiply 1 times 10, you get 10.
Now, the main thing is to isolate the 4 times 3, isn't it? You're going to use this when you get in pre-calc and all those others.
Pre-calculus.
If you isolate the 4 and the 3, that means you can multiply them and make a 12 out of them, right? So all I did was I took the 3 and I moved it with the 4, and then I took the 1, moved it with the 10. Now I'm just going to multiply 12 times 10. And the answer here is what? Which we already knew was the answer because we know the trick. Now, do you remember at the beginning of the year I said, I'm going to teach you lots of tricks,
Yes.
but before I teach you the tricks, you have to understand what really happens. Well, this trick accidentally got taught to you way earlier, didn't it? So now we have to kind of backtrack and figure out what really happens. Let's try a harder one. Let's try 40 times 300. Write that one down. 40 times 300.
It gets dry and then it's hard to erase.
I know, but the thing is, if you erase when it's wet, it's going to smear. So go ahead and let it dry. So if you haven't erased, you can go ahead and erase, or you can just write on the other part of your whiteboard that doesn't have anything on it, okay? Miley, you're going to have to sit up. Okay, so talk about unit form here. 4 what?
10.
4 tens.
300.
You're close.
300.
300s. Good. 300s. Now I want you to put equals and then blank. Because we're going to figure out how to say this in unit form when we're all finished. And I didn't leave myself enough room. Okay. So now, associative property, group your numbers. Did you like my little friends idea?
Yeah.
You sometimes have your friends and you associate with your friends. So this is 4 times what?
3.
You're close. 10. You got to take this unit form and just write it in standard form. And this is 3 times what? 100. Okay. Now that we've got our numbers grouped, let's switch some numbers around.
3 and 10.
Okay, so who said that?
Me.
Lexi said switch the 3 and the 10. Do you agree, boys and girls?
Yes.
I do too. So now I have 4 times 3 times 10 times 100. Okay? So now I can multiply to get answers. Who knows what 10 times 100 is? 1,000. Thanks for raising your hands. 1,000. If I do 12 times 1,000, what's my answer?
12,000.
12,000. Whoops.
12 plus.
No, I was going to write the unit form. 12,000. Okay? So now that I know, this one right here is going to help me figure out what to write on my line. 12 times 1,000 would be 12 thousands. You got to make sure you get your S on it. It's not THS anymore, is it? No. Okay, so I want to show you something. Eyes up here for a minute once you get that done, okay? Ready? I've got, if I put a 10 here and a 100 here, what's 10 times 100? 1,000. That's how I figure out my place value in unit form. Clever, huh? Okay, let's turn the page. I'm going to turn the page. You erase. Let's try another one. Now, am I teaching you a strategy, Miley? I'm going to need you to start writing everything that we write, and I'm going to need to be able to read it, okay? All right, I'm teaching you a strategy for if you ever need it. Plus, it's on your problem set and exit ticket, so you might as well know, right? Okay, so I want you to write 60 times 5 down. And Miley, if you can't see, here's what the kids always do. They look at my computer. And then we're going to change that to unit form. So this is 6 what?
Tenths.
Oh, I almost wrote tenths.
I do.
It's a habit, isn't it?
Yeah.
6 tenths times 5 ones. Now I'm just going to simply put that into standard form. So now I have 6 times what?
10.
Times 5 times 1. What numbers would you suggest, Gabby, moving around? Well, you're close.
60. 6 times.
Should I move the 10 and the 5 so I can get 6 times 5? Okay. 6 times 5 times 10 times 1. Okay, so 6 times 5 is what?
30.
Times 10.
10.
So my answer is
300.
300. Now how would I write this in unit form?
300.
300s.
That trick multiplying tens and ones won't work this time.
It won't, because why, Thomas?
Because they're 2 different place values.
No, because we have a what on the answer to the 2-digit problem? What do we have on the end of it?
0.
A 0. So the trick of 10 times 1 won't work here because we have a 0 on 6 times 5. So it's bumping us up another place value. That's why you have to know how to do this. That's enough. Okay, let's make one. Let's do one that's a little harder.
Yeah.
Go ahead and erase.
600.
Let's do 60 times 500.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say 5,000.
I know what you wanted. Okay, so unit form. Lupita, tell me what to write here. 6 what?
6 tens and 5 hundreds.
Good. And you cannot abbreviate anything now. It's got to be written out. And make sure you multiply between them. Okay? All right, so 6 times what?
5.
No,
10.
10. And 5 times
100.
100. Ooh, I forgot to put equals in the line. Okay. So what are we going to switcheroo here? 6.
6 and 5.
Good. No, not the 6 and 5.
10 and
10 and 5.
And 6 times 100.
Now my guess is I can't multiply 10 times 100 and get 1,000, and that's going to be my answer for unit form. So, and the reason I think that is because it didn't work with 30 last time, so I don't think it's going to work this time. So 6 times 5 is what?
30.
And 10 times 100 is
1,000.
1,000. 30 times 1,000 is
30,000.
30,000.
30,000.
30,000. So that would be 3
10,000.
10,000s. And I have to write in a circle because I don't have enough room. There we go.
Backwards L.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so be careful with multiples of 10 when you multiply your 2 digits together. All right? Let's do something a little more fun. Okay. Okay, so here we go. 451 times 80. In order to do that, I have to figure out 451 times 8. So the first problem we're going to do is 451 times 80. Go ahead and write that down. And then to do that, I have to figure out the answer to this problem. Now, if I had a calculator, I could just multiply it out on the calculator. I'm not going to do that in 5th grade math because I really need to practice regrouping at the bottom, don't I?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to do 451 times 8. Watch me, boys and girls. If you will do this, your life will be simpler. We know we're regrouping at the bottom, don't we? So let's leave a space. Instead of writing the 8 way up against, why don't we just move it down a little bit? Leave some space to regroup. So then 5 times 8 is what?
40.
And I have room. Make sense? And 4 times 8?
30.
32 plus 4.
It's 36.
So now, whoops. So now we have an answer.
3,600.
Okay, we'll come back to that. Let's go ahead and do this problem. Okay, so you ready? 451 what?
On that.
Ones. 8 what?
10.
And then we'll get an answer here in a minute. So 451 times 1 and 8 times 10.
I wrote it up the wrong way.
I'm having a little issue with my crooked line here.
I am too.
Okay, so let me get it straightened up for all of us. So now I'm going to do 451. What number am I moving over there?
The 8.
The 8. And I'm taking the 1, moving it with the 10.
This is going to be hard to solve.
Now don't write a comma.
Oh, I see where you went with the, if you got to solve the first one.
Yeah, I have to know what those digits are in order to do this problem. I took the 4, 5, 1, and 8 out of this to solve it. See what I did?
Yeah.
I took 4, 5, 1, 8, 4518 out. And I solved it first. Okay, so now the answer to this, don't put the comma in yet, is what?
36,080.
Okay, how do I write that in unit form?
36,000.
No.
3.
Raise your hand. I'm going to get you to thinking here for a minute.
This is going to be long.
Christian, what do you think? How would I say this in unit form? I'm giving you a hint here.
30,000. 10,000.
No? Mario,
3,608 ones.
you're close. You're very close. What place value is 1 times 10? Tens. So 3,608 tens. Trust me on this.
Oh.
Okay? How do I know it's tens place?
Because
Because there's 1 0 on the end of it. Right here. Okay, let's do another one. You'll get this. Let's try 4,510 times 80. Okay, now you're going to use what we just did, the number with the 0 at the end. Okay, Yosin, help me out here. This is 451 what? 1 0 tells me what place value?
10.
Tens. 451 tens times 8 tens equals something or other. All right, so now to put this in groups for the associative property. 451 times what?
10.
And 8 times what? 10. So now, what numbers are we going to move around?
The 10 and 8.
10 and the 8. I think you're pretty good at this by now. So 451 times 8 and 10 times 10. So basically we're isolating the tens or multiples of 10, powers of 10, into their own part of the problem. So now we know this is 3,608 times, what's 10 times 10?
100.
100.
Wait, how do you know? Wait, where'd you get the 10 times 10?
I moved this 10 over here.
Oh. Wait, how did you get the 3,600?
I remembered it from last time.
Or actually, the last time's answer on.
The first time, yeah. Okay, so now let's talk about this before we move on. If I take this number or this problem equation right here, I can change that into unit form right now. What is it going to be? 3,608 hundredths. So 3,608 hundredths. Write that down. Now I can write my answer.
3680.
Don't say anything until you get it written down and put the comma in.
3,608.
Nope, just stop. Stop saying anything. Hey Daniel, how do I say this number? $800. 360,800. Okay, let's try. You want to try the next one?
Try the hardest one.
Okay, this is the hardest one on today's lesson, so let's try it. 4,510 times 800. Now my goal here is to get all my zeros on one side of the problem and all the other digits on the other side of the problem. And the strategy that I'm teaching you is the best one to use for that. Move them around. Okay, so do you remember what this was in unit form? We just did it a minute ago. 451 tens. The 1 0 tells us it's tens place. Times 800s. And we have to write it out. It's not decimal anymore. At least for now. Okay, got that much?
No. Yes. Yes.
So take this part of the problem and write it in standard form. Michael, what numbers do you want to move around to make this easier for us?
10 and 8.
The 10 and the 8. So I'm going to do 451 times 8 because I already know the answer to that. And I'm going to move the 10 over here with the 100. Okay. Morgan, what was the answer to 451 times 8?
3,600.
Okay. And Lupita, what's the answer to 10 times 100? 1,000. Very good. Okay, let's use that to figure out what to write in the unit form. So we have 3,608 what? Thousands. 3,608 thousands. I sense a little curving. And in standard form, how many zeros will I add to the end?
3. So 3,600,000.
What? Somehow I knew somebody was going to shout out that answer before anybody had a chance to think about it.
Tom always like that.
Okay, boys and girls, say this. 3,608,000.